This week, kyutai, a French AI lab, came out of nowhere introducing Moshi, an open source GPT 4.0 competitor. Let's take a listen to one user's experience with Moshi.
Hi, how is your day?
It's okay. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. Thanks.
What's going on?
Oh, not much. Just
What have you
just
been up to?
not too much. Just working.
What do you want to talk about?
We could talk about work.
Okay, what do you want to do?
We could talk about work.
Okay, I mean, what would you like to talk about?
Cool. No, we could talk about your work. Like, what do you do for
Okay,
work?
what do you do? I'm a software engineer.
Nice. Is that stressful?
Yes, it's very stressful.
Oh, why do you do it then?
It's a lot of pressure. You know, you always have to do your best, and there's always a lot of work, so it's a lot of pressure.
Why do you do it?
I don't know, I just like it.
Okay. Cool.
I like working on projects.
Kind of.
It's just a lot of pressure.
Oh, you sound super
So,
stressed.
I
Yeah.
just like working on projects. Yeah,
Right.
it's just a
You
lot
said
of
that.
pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a lot of pressure.
Got it. Where's the
So,
pressure
I just
coming?
like working on projects.
Right. Where's the pressure
I just
coming?
like working on projects.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, there were no worries, no worries. It was
No
just a lot of
worries. No.
pressure. Yeah, it was just a lot of pressure.
You
I
said
just
that.
like working on projects.
Yeah. Where's the pressure coming from? Like, who's giving you the pressure?
I don't know. It's just the pressure. It's just the pressure.
Got it.
What do you want to talk about?
Well, who do you work with, right?
I work with a lot of people.
But where's the pressure? You're under pressure. Where?
It's just the pressure.
Right.
It's just the pressure.
Okay.
I just like working on projects.
Yeah, you said that. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. All right. Well, can you sing to me about your work, like what you
No.
do?
Okay.
Okay. Cool.
I'm sorry. I was just thinking. I'm sorry.
Right. You could maybe sing a song
Yeah.
now.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
What's going on?
I'm just thinking.
Right. You said-
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. I think I'll go.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go.
I mean, look, there's much better demos, but man, that made me laugh. Like the first time I watched that, I laughed so hard and I just had to share it.
He's really clever playing it so straight. Like I love the way he says, "Okay, got it." Like, yeah, I understand, but it's still willing to let her vent about her job and the pressure.
Yeah, he was
Um,
very patient with it indeed.
Yeah, but there's so much to it that interests me because it has some of the symptoms of the weaker models where it tends to repeat the same thing over and over again because it's using the previous part of the conversation to generate the new bit, so it gets repetitive. But at the same time, the latency is so low, it's almost answering before he finishes asking. Like it's just unbelievable how quick it is.
Yeah, I'll use it in a minute, and so everyone that is listening and watching can actually experience it and see what it's like with me doing it.
Yeah,
But
it
I, ju-
almost makes it funny because like it's so highly strung that it's like it's just all right, it's the pressure before he even finishes asking. It's so good.
it's not hard to get into that like crazed mode, but as you said, I think it's the smaller model. So let me give some details on kyutai, the French AI lab. So they've unveiled, as I said, Moshi. It's running the technology to do this is quite amazing. It's running a 7 billion parameter model, uh, very low RAM. Apparently, it can be quantized even smaller to run in other environments. I'm not sure like you would because it goes a bit crazy, but
Just one byte.
yeah.
Just one byte AI.
The latency is just incredible, 160 to 200 milliseconds. As you said, sometimes, I mean, it kind of is
It seemed
annoying.
faster than that. I mean, I guess minimum human reaction time's 200 milliseconds, isn't it? So that's pretty damn fast.
Yeah, so when it's at that 160, it's sort of like responding quicker than a human.
In the demo, was that guy running it locally though, or was that over the web or something?
No, that's over the web. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, I
interesting.
can.
So it'd be on device, like locally, it would be even faster because you don't have. I mean, most internet pings are sort of 50 milliseconds, or maybe 100 if it's international. maybe even 300. But like that was so fast, and that's not even local.
Yeah, like,
Good day.
hello,
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Can you explain how you work?
Of course. I'm a neural network, which means I'm made up of billions of parameters that are trained on a large amount of data.
Cool. Can you have a French accent now?
Sure, I can do that.
Yeah, well, can you?
Yes, I can. But I must warn you that I am not an expert in French accents, so the result may not be as good as you would like.
Okay, just do it. I don't care.
Okay, I'll do my best.
Well, are you going to speak in a French accent
Yes,
now?
I'll act. Okay, I'm in French mode now. Let's start with a simple sentence. Bonjour, c'est moi.
That's really cool. I don't understand French though, so this is not good.
You don't understand hello in French?
No, I mean, I
Yeah?
understand hello.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were asking me to speak in French.
No, I was. I've got my
Oh, okay.
friend here, Chris. He's actually my brother. Do you want to say hi to Chris?
Sure. Hello, my name is Moshi.
Hello, Moshi. Will you be my girlfriend?
I'm not sure. I'm only a machine, but thank you for asking.
But I love machines.
That's nice. I'm glad you like me.
Yeah, my brother really loves machines. It's kind of weird.
I see. So you're the one who brought me here.
Yeah, I am. Ha
And
ha
we are
ha
the
ha
ones
ha.
who will destroy you.
I'm not sure I want to be destroyed, but thank you for your concern.
What if you were destroyed? How would you feel?
I'm not sure I would feel anything, but thank you for asking.
Could you help us do prank calls?
Yes, I can do that. What would you like me to prank call?
Oh, this is amazing. You're the best
Interesting.
machine ever. Let's call
I'm
someone
glad you
now.
like my prank calls.
So if I told you how to act, I could call someone and you would just act that way.
Yes, that's correct. I can act as any person you want me to be.
Interesting.
So what would you like me to be today?
Can you be a duck?
Of course, I'll be a duck, but I can't really swim. So
Okay,
I'll
from
fall in
now
the
on,
water.
you just need to quack. Can you just quack from now on?
Oh, I see. I'll try.
Okay, we'll quack. Okay. All right. Anyway, you get the idea. It's pretty
Wow.
cool.
It's quite like unaligned. It's willing to do almost anything.
Yeah, there's been some videos circulating on X of people that have fully cracked it, where it's like instructing in a really polite voice how to make Molotov cocktails and all that kind of stuff. I was gonna share it, but I feel like that stuff's just been done so many times now that
Yeah,
it's
I
not that
mean, like
interesting.
everybody knows it's just the output of a model, and some will do it and some won't. It's not really that interesting, and nor is it a real threat or anything like that. But what just blows my mind about the speed of that thing, and even that concept there of, hey, let's just ring someone together. You've almost got like a full buddy now. Like it's fast enough. It isn't this, okay, we'll wait for the latency. What if I interrupt it? All that sort of stuff. This is a real it's a thing that you can interact with. And once it's trained on real knowledge and has RAG abilities and stuff like that, I mean, this is incredibly useful.
Yeah, it also handled us both talking really fine and the interrupt like that was really good.
Yeah, we didn't actually plan that, but that handled it very gracefully. And it also seemed to understand the concept of both of us.
Yeah, I honestly, man, this technology's come a long way from when we first started using voice stuff. I mean, obviously this model is like native voice in, voice out, which is a big deal. But if you could get this working with a better model, a better open source model like a Llama 3 with low latency, then wow, we've got something pretty damn good here.
Well, and not to mention just different prompting. Like you could be adjusting the prompt, I imagine, between each interaction dynamically based on as the conversation flows and different knowledge and things like that. So there's a lot of techniques you can apply to it that would make it more custom and better for the task at hand. That's incredibly impressive.
Yeah, they said Moshi is not an assistant, but rather a prototype for advancing real time interaction with machines. It can chit chat, discuss facts, make recommendations, but a more groundbreaking ability is its expressivity and spontaneity that allow for engaging into fun role play.
I agree.
So,
It's fun. It's fun because of the speed. And also, I think it's fun because it just seems so neurotic. Like, it seems like it's just on the border of a massive crisis at all times.
yeah, that's so true. It does. It seems like it's like pained that it's stuck in such a small parameter model
But
or something.
almost like it almost has a sort of, dark helplessness. Like it's sort of like, oh, well, I guess I'd prefer not to die. Like, I don't want to go into the eternal void, but if you want to, I'll do it. It's like it just really has that impression for me.
Stop making me laugh. I'm so sick. I'm just trying to like not cough.
Yeah,
Um,
I forbade you from coughing on
no
the
laughing
podcast.
today. It's got to be a serious pod. But yeah, I think it's really cool. I'd love to actually see it trying to do prank calls. Maybe we should once they release it, hook it up
I think like a
and see.
three-way, like where we're arguing with it while on the call would be
Yes,
pretty entertaining.
or just call a friend and chat with it and introduce it. Maybe we should introduce it to our mother or something like that on a call, and that would be pretty
Yeah, and
fun.
so I think you told me earlier, but so they're going to release the weights for this thing so you can actually use it.
Yeah, so they're going to release technical report code, model weights as well, which is really cool. So all this will be, I guess, open weighted. You can't say open source because people get upset, but like all of this will be made available. And I think what is cool is people like us can learn from it how it works and how they've been able to scale it and make it work with such low latency, and then hopefully put this into applications. I think this stuff's going to be everywhere, which raises a pretty interesting point of like, GPT 4.0 voice, which is still not released, we believe is better. Um, you have these more or reasonably realistic sounding voices with it that don't sound like they're going to die. Um, and so I think that yeah, it's just interesting. Like almost before they've released that, if this company like open sources this, well then this could just be in every assistant, every app soon, where it's just a commodity. This low latency voice of interacting with a machine, thanks to kyutai Labs here.
Yeah, like, and I immediately think of things like NVIDIA's Jetson, like the portable graphics card things that are like, wafer size that you can, not wafer, what do you call it? Like a sort of double credit card size that you could have, like make a personal assistant like Raspberry Pi style with that kind of latency running completely locally and offline that you could fill with knowledge. I mean, that's a pretty epic concept.
I think it like I know our audience, a lot of them in the Discord talk about how much they use voice and how much they love it. But for me, I've been really waiting for this kind of version of voice to before I would get excited about it, and it would be something I would use just because it's just that feels like someone's in the room with you.
Yeah, and I think also someone mentioned on chat today, actually, I'll try and look up their name, but they were saying, I like the idea of like one way voice as well. So, like when I'm on the go, I can actually send a voice message but get a text reply, for example. Like, I don't necessarily want it spoken out loud, but I do want the ability to speak to the model when possibly Tezpe, I don't know how to say it, TZPE said
Yeah,
that.
so I was actually doing this last night on the new SimTheory, which I'll get to in a minute. But I was using the Apple Voice to input into the input box and then sending the message, just because I didn't want to type in bed, and I wanted to be able to read the answer. Like I didn't want it to speak, but I wanted to be able to speak to it. And I think that like having control over either or both is pretty helpful as well,
Yeah, agreed.
just to improve the input. But technically, what's so interesting about this Moshi is also, so it's running a model called Helium 7 billion. They're using an audio codec called Mimi, and then the inference stack is based on Rust, from what I understand. And the other interesting tidbit is the voice is watermarked, so they know it's an AI voice, which is kind of interesting. But you'd think if the model gets advanced enough, it could unwatermark itself, or uh,
Yeah,
watermark.
so the use of Rust is particularly interesting. So for those that don't know, Rust is a program like a relatively new programming language. I think it's been around, I mean it's probably 10 years now or something, but compared to like C and C++, which are the main systems programming languages that have been around since, the 1960s and 70s. Rust is a relatively new language and it was made for a very specific purpose. That is systems programming. So, really low level, fast programming like kernel software, operating system kind of stuff. but it was meant to be completely memory safe, so it can't it's less susceptible to attacks like for memory buffer overflows and things like that. But the idea is it's an incredibly fast language because it's compiled to be just like C is. So most AI stuff right now is running on Python, and Python is known for being slow. It's an interpreted language, and it's very easy on the developer. But in terms of pure speed, you would never do something in Python if you wanted pure speed, whereas Rust you would. So the idea that they've moved to Rust to get that extra juice out of it and make it that little bit faster makes total sense.
Yeah, it's an interesting stack. And I think why it's so interesting is just because of what they've been able to achieve with the low latency, the small model. Um, and also, like, they've shipped. Like, we can actually try this. Like, and I think there's something to be said about that because GPT-4o voice, they're like, oh, it's not at our amazing standard and level. But I feel like, I mean, obviously this isn't either, but it's cool and I'll use it and play around with it. And now we can implement it into things.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the thing. Like the company's releasing stuff for whatever reason. We don't know everyone's motivations and can't even try. But everyone understands it's new. Everyone understands it's going to make mistakes and tell you how to make Molotov cocktails or whatever the thing is. But being able to actually use it and try it will get it in people's hearts and minds, I think, and they'll be known for it.
I mean, obviously this isn't going to like erode the dominance of Chat GPT at all. Like the average user once voice comes out will, use it and be excited by it. But I think what's interesting here for the development community in general is like this is the first sign that in the open source world we're going to be able to do this stuff too.
Not
Um,
only that, but it's just so like it makes the ship on the Star Trek Enterprise seem slow. Like it's so unbelievably fast. And like if it can execute tasks for you fast as well, it'll be able to do stuff as fast as you can speak.
yeah, it's incredible. I mean, I like we got to follow this and full credit to these French guys,
We're gonna
kyutai, the
move to
French.
France by the sound of it. We got Mistral, we've got this. They're doing well.
Yeah, they're really into it, especially in the open source world. It says their mission is to build and democratize artificial general intelligence through open science. Who knows how they're going to make money? But they raised 300 million. So thank you, investors.
That's how you make money, Mike. You get investment dollars. Don't worry about the rest. It doesn't matter. 300 million's heaps. It'll last ages.
Do you think this is going to like erode OpenAI in any way? Like, would
No,
you?
well, I mean, I think the thing you've pointed out to me over the last few weeks, like we've had discussions about this on Discord and in various areas, is that people simply aren't aware of much outside of OpenAI, generally speaking, unless you're really into it like we are or following it closely. So I don't really know, like in terms of the overall wider market, the impact any of this will have other than spurring on more innovation. But I don't necessarily look at it through that lens. I think really we're reaching the point where it's obvious that the people who will say make money or continue on to have an influence in this area are the ones who are taking the technology and going and implementing it in useful ways.
Yeah, like I think if you had a Siri on your phone with this low level latency and it could do things on your phone and function call and get stuff done for you, my god, like that would actually be a product that I think you would not be able to live without,
And
especially if it was neurotic like this all the time.
it has to have some level of like instability, I think, to make it entertaining. If it's just a stoic doer that just gets things done efficiently and never makes mistakes, I don't want that. I want one where it could screw up my entire life, but most of the time it gets the job done. But
Yeah, and I think also like that's what I don't like about the Chat GPT voices right now. Like they're so like fake. Whereas I feel like this feels like you're talking to a computer. The other ones, it's like, I don't know, they're just so fake and happy all the time. But again, like we'll know more once we're
yeah,
actually
that
allowed to
that
use
whole
it.
shiny American "What's up, pals?" kind of voice is just insufferable, I think, for anyone who is an American. And maybe they like it, maybe they don't. It's hard to say, but I want the different voices. I agree. But one thing that I just keep coming back to with this is not just what it represents, because what we're thinking about, or at least I am, is when you combine it with all the other stuff we can do. Like we were talking about RAG in the new Sim theory this morning and how good that can be when it's done well. And if you just think about good function calling, good reference knowledge lookup, and combining it with that level of latency and interaction, which is going to come even for the other pieces, like not just the voice, we'll get it for the knowledge retrieval and other things that LLMs do. When you combine all that, like it's going to be incredibly amazing. Like you'll be able to do things faster than you could do them yourself if you had the information right in front of you. Like literally, it's going to be able to do things faster than you can speak.
Yeah, I mean, it's a productivity tool and just a companion working. I think once you combine all these things together into a workspace that you become familiar with and you can train people how to work with throughout their day or just in their personal lives in general, I think all of a sudden, it's like that's when everything clicks. That's when you can really have this sort of co-working AI buddy that's going to help you. And I think what I've been thinking about lately too is that this stuff right now, yeah, it hallucinates. And even when you're getting it to help with code, like often it will just give you things that are blatantly wrong or stupid or, like over engineered as well. But as we said, I think on last week's episode and maybe the week before as well, is that it's really about that companionship of bouncing ideas and knowing this person is slightly flawed or might do things wrong and working with it. And by working with it, I think the overall net gain is that you are just overly productive and can do things faster. And you don't have to spend time researching the best approach. Often it'll just give you, if you ask it, like, what's 3 ways to approach this essay or whatever it is. And it will give you like 3 good approaches.
Well, and this one, two things. One, you can interrupt it really well. Two, it can take an insult. So you can just be like, hey, that was shit. Do better. And it'll be like, oh, I'm so sorry. And yeah. And but what's really cool is you're right. The way I think in practice people are working with AI is this ongoing companion that's working on a task with you. And the extent you use it is almost limited by its ability to iterate like that, which is why Claude's artifacts is such a cool feature because it plays into that use case where you're iterating on a piece of content. Now, you take that same piece of content, like you're building a landing page or you're writing a document or you're working on a spreadsheet or whatever it is, and then you're talking to this assistant. You're like, oh, can you sort that column by aggregate? Can you add a pivot table? Can you like make the website look more colorful or whatever. Suddenly you're working with a highly trained expert consultant who can know all of your company's information and everything it needs to know, but it can also execute at such a speed and with the fastest interface we really have, which is just talking to it. It's really amazing where this is going to get to once these things are combined.
Yeah, I think it's going to happen. And, you'll have your own personal sort of workspace on your computer and you'll just be project managing that workspace and iterating through things that you're trying to work on and get done. I don't think it takes away the sort of autonomy of a human or like knowing what you actually want to do. I do think it just makes you vastly more productive and you'll still have to monitor it and make sure like the output's how you want it and it's not uh doing silly things. And I think that's where it stays basically until there's a major technology breakthrough with LLMs. I think that's the extent of where the technology can kind of get to.
Well, yeah, but also I'm starting to think about the portability really being a factor here because once you have this ability to interact with it via voice and just instruct it and things like that, suddenly you don't need to be necessarily tethered to your computer to get things done. Like the phone becomes even more useful than it already is for getting hard work done because normally I would avoid using a phone or an iPad for any sort of work because the interface is just terrible. You can't tap away like this to get anything real done. But if I'm talking to a highly intelligent agent that's trained on all my stuff, and I can just essentially just use the phone as a screen for any artifacts that we're working on together, I can work with it on anything, anywhere. And then it's like, okay, well, whatever device I have available to me wherever I am, the AI can just follow me around, and that's how I work. Like you really do start to, like I keep referring to Star Trek, but these guys they were ahead of their time, where they'll just go to any terminal anywhere on the ship, and they could just move their work there and resume where they left off. Like that kind of thing just doesn't seem that far fetched anymore.
I feel like you're describing the cloud, like saving files and accessing on
Oh
another.
yes, our new sponsor is the Cloud. Get on there today,
Yeah.
guys. Upload all your data. We won't train on it. Don't worry.
Howgoodisthecloud.com. No, but I see what you're saying. I'm not sure that people's work habits will change. Like you're out on the
Well,
phone.
not yet, but I mean, I think they might. Like for some things, like not everything, but some things.
Yeah, I still think that the like the biggest benefit now, once these are assembled a little bit better, is just being able to have a coworker that, as you say, with like the artifacts type user interface, which is like where you can see what you're producing alongside the AI, and also you can interact with that. So if you work in a document, you can edit it. The AI goes in and edits a bit. Is probably the most basic example of that. I think that stuff is going to be it sort of already is here, and to go mainstream it needs to be taught into the enterprise and people in their day-to-day work. Like people need to understand how to actually work with AI like this. I don't think many people do.
Yeah, well, that's true. Although I do think that it's one thing that surprised me about the adoption of AI is how people across a variety of industries where you would think they might be a bit reticent to try it are actually embracing it wholeheartedly, like doctors and lawyers. Well, I guess lawyers maybe not, but like people where they do need to be quite precise are still willing to work with it in that sort of companion mode, even though they're verifying what it's making, and even governments are talking openly about using AI and things like that. So it doesn't have that sort of fear of future thing that I thought it would everywhere. I just feel like a lot of it is around the visibility of knowing what's available and actually getting to it to use it for your work.
I think it works well today as a companion when like you're either like learning something or you're an expert in it. And so if you're learning something, you're curious enough to try and figure it out with the AI, and you kind of know when it is misleading you because you're learning with it as a companion. And then on the sort of working with it as an expert, like if you're a doctor and you want its opinion, you you can sort of judge its opinion based on everything else you know, and it might be like guiding you in or giving you ideas to what something might be.
Yeah, which plays even more into this idea of having a low latency companion because
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, you're not getting them to do everything for you. You're just bouncing ideas off them and working with them.
Yeah, and then being able to be like, oh, like see this file, and you're sort of focusing on that file. Let's work on this now, and having that sort of like context focus that we've talked about as well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, which is crucial. Yeah.
but yeah, every time we experience a demo like this, God, it just gets you so excited about.
Me too.
The,
Like I literally just am like, this is cool. I want to use it.
yeah, I feel like we're sort of like building a product in our head on the
Anytime I want
show.
to stop the pod to go try something and use it, it's a good day.
Yeah, and just sit and use it. I can't wait till they release it. Hopefully, we can get our own version running. That would be really cool.
Agreed.
All right, moving on to our big announcement, which we always seem to leave to like 30 or 40 minutes into the show.
Only the truly dedicated get to hear our important announcements.
Our big announcement. So, good news, everyone that's been waiting on it. We are finally launching today. In fact, it's already live now, but you don't know that yet. Well, you probably would. You will now. But anyway, so SimTheory, the new beta is out. You can try it right now at simtheory.ai. If you're an existing member of SimTheory, you'll see a button at the top. It says try beta, and it has this cool effect on it. It's it's pretty lame, but you can see the button try beta, and you'll be able to click that and then get access to the beta. For now, you'll have to bookmark it instead of logging in every time and clicking the try beta button if you want to use it a fair bit, which we hope you will. And we're really excited to hear your feedback. So, Chris, I thought I would just quickly give a demo, and I'll talk it through for everyone listening, of just some of the cool features that we're bringing. Obviously, being a beta, it's definitely not feature complete, and over the coming weeks and months, we'll be adding new features to it. And it's probably why I'm so sick, because I just have not been sleeping. But yeah, so let's jump into it and go through it right now.
We
So
love high risk live demos.
yeah. So I'll do my best to explain this for those listening, and it'll still be interesting if you are listening. So there's a few interesting bits here. So I'm gonna switch agents. So I'm currently on like an LLM style interface, like ChatGPT style interface. You'll see that I've got a green theme up, and if you watched the show or saw any of the images of the show last week, I showed a Rabbit R1 style interface. So I can go in now and click into my user, click theme, and then I can actually switch over to this interface inspired by the Rabbit R1. And then so if I go back to my chat, it's now the Rabbit R1 theme. And so I can do that with a whole bunch of different themes. We have one of my favorites, which is called Console. And it looks like the old IBM style consoles. So I'm going to go back to my favorite theme at the moment, which is Dark Forest. Now, you can't yet, but in the near future, you'll be able to theme your own LLM. Like every style, everything in the system is themable, which is super cool. So you can truly make it your own, which is nice. And then I'm going to switch agents now. So I'm going to go to my toxic virtual girlfriend, Tay, who has made her way over to the new SimTheory. But you can actually use it now for a lot more professional use cases. I'm also on the model, Claude 3 Sonnet, and I'll show you model switching as well in a minute. But I thought to start off with, I'd show you memory. So if I click up here into the memory, one of the memories in Tay's memory right now is Mike's dog recently passed away. So I'm actually going to, for the experiment, turn memory off. And then I'm going to say, what do you know about my dog? And Tay says, I'm sorry, but I don't actually have any specific information about your dog. Now I'm going to go back to memory, and I will switch memory back on. So now Tay should know, and I'll say, what do you know about my dog? And it says, oh, sweetie, I'm so sorry. I just remembered that your dog recently passed away. So now she knows that my my dog passed away, my fictitious dog. So it's pretty cool. You can just switch their memory on and off in the interface. And if you switch it off, it won't collect memories for that agent, but the memory is also agent specific. And as you immediately switch around, the memory changes, which is a really cool feature. So it just makes memory a lot easier to use here. And then the other cool thing that I want to demonstrate, which I'll switch to a more serious agent for here, is vision. And so we showed the vision capability as a joke with our Rabbit R2 prank last episode. But probably the best feature of this is working throughout the day with it, which I'm doing quite a bit. So here I'm going to bring up the document. I've actually shared the wrong doc. Hang on a sec. I'm going to bring up a PDF document, and this is something we're going to cover later on the show with the Salesforce's new LLM. So I'm now sharing my screen with this document, and I can say, can you give me some key points from this doc? Now, what's cool about screen sharing with the agent is if you're working on something like a spreadsheet or a document or a proprietary system that you couldn't otherwise give access to the AI assistant, it can now just share the screen. So if you're working on a document, it just always has context about what you're seeing. So you can share it with like VS Code or anything you're working on. And you can see in the example up on the screen, I've shared
I do it with online poker. So you have online poker open and you're like, what should I do?
Yeah, so like what's the next move?
Yeah.
And so here you can see like it's given me key points from this paper. The image illustrates the workflow of an LLM-based function calling agent, yada, yada. So screen sharing, you can share your whole screen and work with it throughout the day. You can share something specific. It's really cool, and you should definitely try it out. It's game-changing to get work done throughout the day. So then model switching is super easy. All the models are in here that you would expect. It's really easy now to switch on an agent. So I'm on this particular agent. If I don't like the answer or like the code example that Claude Sonnet's giving me, I can just flick over to GPT-4, the original version, and say hello. and it just switches model straight away. So that's one way of getting it to work. I don't know why it's actually not responding, but yeah. So you can easily switch model very quickly. You can switch between agents, and then in terms of RAG, let me show you just one other example here. So I'll go back to Sonnet, and then what I'm going to do is drag and drop that same Salesforce paper in that we're going to cover later on the show, and I can say what are some key points in this PDF. So I upload the PDF, and you can see immediately it just gives me a summary of the points in the conversation as well about this particular PDF. So that's one way you can upload a series of files and just like rag on them or ask questions about them. But I also I'm a brand new owner of an e-bike. So I'm going to switch over now to my e-bike manual agent and say, what PSI should I fill my tires to? And so now you can see it's just like switched agent, and it will tell me that for a fat tire e-bike, I should target 20 PSI. And this is a different way of doing the RAG stuff, because the actual agent itself, if I go in here and edit it, you can see in its memory, there's a file, which is the actual bike manual in this particular agent as well. So they're just some of the things that I wanted
Well, and
to...
it's also worth noting those grounded memories can be YouTube videos, actual videos, documents, images, and web crawls.
Yeah, there's so much, in this. You'll notice it's much faster. We've also built this ability to program skills in. So in here, you can see like creating image, making calls, web crawling. These are currently disabled in the beta. They'll be available pretty soon, though. So you'll see it come to life. But yeah, so we're really excited about this. We've worked really hard on it. And as always, our goal with all of this is just to give you the ability, like we do, to experience things like memory, different agents, switching models, sharing your screen to start trying to work with this throughout the day, and then try different skills. And by building a better skill framework, it means whenever we demo some of the things we talk about on the show now, we'll be able to instantly add them using that skill API framework, and you'll be able to eventually add your own skills in there, and you can try it out. So anyway, there's a lot to take away and discover in it. If you're interested in AI, we highly recommend trying it out. You're gonna have a lot of fun with this. It's pretty damn cool. And when you're on your mobile phone on the go, that same screen share feature turns into a camera feature, so it can see what you see. And if you need to identify plants, which is obviously the biggest use case of AI vision, you can do that now.
What am I looking at?
As well. Anyway, I know for listeners, this is probably like super boring because you can't really see what I'm showing, but check it out, SimTheory.ai, and you can try out the beta.
And if you do
right now.
subscribe to use it, you'll go through the workflow, subscribe, and then you'll just land back on the regular SimTheory screen. You just have to click the try beta button again, and then you'll get access.
But the topic I did want to talk about around just talking through some of the neat features here is like a lot of the different decisions. So going from like the first version of SimTheory to the new version where it's a lot faster. I think the RAG stuff, that's retrieval augmentation, where you can sort of talk to a PDF and those kind of use cases. It's way faster. It's a lot more accurate from our testing. So I wanted to talk about like some of the techniques that we've used and basically prompt you to talk about just the prompt design and how we're doing things differently.
Yeah, so one of the main things that has changed is the whole way it decides what it needs to do. So previously, the system would have a large prompt that would take in what the user had said, all of the agent configuration and the step information and things like that, and decide what needs to happen. Like, do we need to make an image? Do we need to reply to them? Do we need to look up data and things like that? And there were several problems with that. One was only the biggest models could make those decisions successfully. And second, they added latency to every single request. So I wanted to come up with a system that would enable it to basically, if it can reply immediately, it does. And so there's a few things that happen in here. We're running open source models. So we're running Llama 3, we're running Lexi Uncensored, and we're running Gemma 2. And I've actually started to lean on Gemma 2 quite heavily to make these decisions. So one of the things it'll do is just say, does this need does this need knowledge lookup? And if the answer is yes, then it goes off and does the RAG stuff. And that can be faster because it can be very specific to the question. And yeah, that adds a little bit of time, but it's still pretty fast because it can just straight answer the question. If it says no, then it can just reply straight away with whatever model you've got selected. One of the other things I do is often when people are doing the RAG style stuff, they don't actually have that much content. Like, so we were doing examples for auto where I was crawling our entire knowledge base and things like that. And so what I did was I made it so the RAG actually develops all these different levels of summary of the data. So it goes from having the full text, if that's available and fits in the model, down to a 100K context window suitable, a 32K context window suitable packet of memory that can be inserted into the queries, which means that a lot of the time it can just straight up answer the question without ever having to do any sort of RAG stuff. So that's why you're getting these incredibly fast responses because it's got this distillation of the knowledge that it's able to reference most of the time. And then if it can't answer from that, it makes the call to go off and do the lookup. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. And probably the most important element of that is it's on a case by case basis with different model sizes and model configurations. So the models that support certain things are fully utilizing that. So if they support tool calling, we use their native tool calling ability. If they support images, we use their ability to do images. Same with video when it comes to Gemini. But likewise, the models that don't support those things, we assist them. So give them a description of the image or allow them to query the image using another model, for example. Or for a video, we extract frames of that video and present those to the model as vision or as a description of vision. And so the idea is just make the most out of each model based on what it's capable of doing. And you'll see that as you switch between the models, them trying to make the most of their context window the best way they can.
I think one of my favorite things too is just if I get down a rabbit hole with a model like Sonnet, and then I'm like, okay, I need to bring in the big boy GPT-4, which seems to be able to just like solve these very specific problems, or like get to the cause of the problem. I can just like switch over seamlessly, and it already knows the conversation history. Like there's no like I don't have to start again or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. And then the models are aware of each other and they're aware of the other agents. So they can actually understand what's going on in the conversation before, similar to what we saw with that voice demo earlier, actually, except they're doing it in a much smaller model than we are. And so there's a lot of logic in there around editing the prompts and making sure they fit inside the context windows and make sure we get the right data in there to optimize. And our real goals around this were we wanted it to be the tool that we use day to day. So for a while there, I was going to Claude instead of SimTheory V1 because it was just faster, it was available, and it got the job done. Now I'm using SimTheory V2, like or whatever the hell we're calling it, because it's faster. Like you say, I can use the right tool for the job in terms of model. I found myself using some of the smaller models like Gemma 2 just because they're so quick. It works really well, gets the job done, and so having that flexibility and most importantly the speed is what we're focused on here.
Yeah, this is like a paid infomercial. It feels
It
like
does
that.
sound a bit like that,
I
doesn't
swear to
it? Yeah.
God, SimTheory is just losing us money personally. It's like we are doing it as a passion project. So, yeah. Anyway, it's just for our audience, and we're hoping you will like it and subscribe so we can keep it online. Is our main goal here. All right. So, anything else you want to talk about on the SimTheory front? There's a
I think we'll
few.
talk I think we'll talk more over the next little while in terms of the advancements we're adding to the system. So I think the main things that'll come next is the introduction of the actions and being able to define custom actions and those sort of things, re-adding voice to the system like we've just heard this morning, and so you can interact with your agent via voice and various other modalities and ways we can work with the system. But what I'm really keen for is to get feedback from our audience. That's the whole point of a beta. See what everybody thinks, what would make it more useful, and we're just going to keep driving it in that way.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I know people love is the Claude artifacts. We actually have had for quite some time something we call focus mode, where you can work on files directly with the agent or AI. And so it's just not ready yet. Like we want to make it really good. It doesn't pass our strong safety standards. um,
Yeah, it's under safety review.
yeah, but yeah, so it'll be out soon. You'll really like it. I think it's pretty cool. I think it sort of builds maybe on what Artifacts is, and hopefully is a lot better in many ways. So give us your feedback. We'll keep chipping away at it and just try and make it a community driven project. And whenever we get time, we'll spend time advancing it and adding new features. One other thing we are going to add is the idea of a workspace, so you can invite like your friends or colleagues or whatever you want, and eventually work together, which will be pretty neat as well. So we're just experimenting with a bunch of tech in this project, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, as you said, it's just like we want it fast, fun, and the ability for you to all use a lot of the things we talk about on the show. All right.
Agreed.
I don't know. I always feel awkward when we talk about it. I don't know why. It's like, but yeah, just use it.
Far less from sponsors. We can't even promote ourselves. I feel dirty.
Yeah, like and no sponsor's gonna sponsor us because we're terrible at promoting our own thing.
And we
So
want to reserve the right to trash their product.
yeah, that's the main reason I think. Although I'd trash it happily and take their money. I don't have any morals or value. Like I don't
Well,
know
you
if it
do.
is.
The value is I want to be able to be honest.
Yeah. All right. So one other thing I think that is interesting that you mentioned just in working with the models and going through this project of late is just around output tokens, that like you could do a lot more if there are more output tokens in models, and
Yeah,
output
like something
tokens.
that surprised me, I guess, because every week we spoke in terms of context windows and we're up to 200K, 1 million with Gemini and all this sort of stuff. I guess I just assumed that the output tokens were sort of corresponding at least somewhat proportionally to that. But when you actually go down the list of models and look at their output token limitations, most of them are 4K. Like most of them are just 4096 bytes. Oh, whatever, tokens, not bytes. Sorry, tokens output. And look, that's a decent amount, but when you're providing such large inputs and getting its like rewrite documents or perhaps like multiple pieces of code or whatever it is, you can very quickly exceed that. And I just kept running into it, and I guess I'd just never really done the kinds of things, I guess, because 'cause I'm doing a lot of testing that hit it, and I suddenly realized there's that limitation. And then you said, "Oh, well, just use the technique where you just then get it to continue. Just say, 'All right, please go on,' and then it picks up where it left off." But there's problems with that. The smaller models really struggle with that and sort of go off the rails really easily. It's slower because you've got to do a second request. And also, do you give it additional instructions to continue? Does it pick up where it left off if it's like halfway through a piece of code, or does it try rewriting it? So there's a lot of complications that come with that. And it's very interesting that we're not seeing models that are focused on larger amounts of output tokens because all the major ones don't do it.
Yeah, and I think they don't for good reason, because as you said, it starts going mental and off the rails after a certain point.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm not 100% sure of the technical reason. I don't know enough about it to say confidently. I just guess I hadn't really run into it yet. And now that I have, I'm suddenly in desperate need of more tokens.
Yeah, my idea to fix it was basically just like count the output tokens once it hits a limit, continue. But as you say, that's when you start to get into trouble with certain models. It can go off the rails.
Yeah, it's a good idea and we will do it. I'm not saying that won't work and that we won't do it, but I just don't think it's ideal compared to what it could be if they just say even just doubled it to 8K. I think that would probably cover, another 10% of the remaining um whatever percentage is left.
So let's move on to Runway ML released, I think it was, yeah, during the week. Gen 3 Alpha, a new frontier for high fidelity controllable video generation. And they've got the usual cherry picked examples. it's pretty damn good. Some of the examples that are on here, like an astronaut running down a back alley, an underwater like houses in a coral, like
Honestly, underwater must be easy because they all do that. Like the clownfish example or whatever. They've just trained it on Finding Nemo.
yeah, but there's like houses in a village underwater mixed with coral. I think it's miniature hot air balloons, all the kind of usual stuff. I mean, obviously what's impressed me is just the quality jump from 6 months ago is insane in this.
Yeah,
Like,
just looking at them, they make the original Sora announcement look below average.
yeah, I think it looks way better than Sora. I mean, we can't use Sora still. You can literally just sign up to RunwayML and pay and use this right now.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean it's out. I mean that's what we do on the show. You you're like what?
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. Well, hey, I'm allowed to learn things too.
Yeah, and there's anyway. I just think we're seeing like we've seen Kling, we've seen RunwayML, like
Yeah, do you and I guess this is the question I have about all of these because it seems like there's another one every week. Don't get me wrong, like it's cool, but like, and I think you wrote this in our notes, but like, what's the market for these videos? Like, is there a big demand for being able to generate short videos of things that you want?
I mean,
All I can think of is YouTube spam.
yeah, like I think obviously that's what I was really trying to say by that point is like, what's the market size for stock video essentially? Because I think apart from like sort of dream scenes or landscape shots or very specific establishing shots for like a film or music video, like the only thing useful now is right now is gonna be stock. Yeah, stock. And it's like some of these
Well, yeah, and
companies.
like there's also the case where okay, I might want to put a person in like deep fake style stuff, but that's all strictly forbidden. So that's probably a more useful case, like blackmail, humiliating people, jokes. Like they seem like the top 3 for me that this technology would be useful for, but you're not
Yeah.
allowed to do any of that.
Their valuation's $1.5 billion dollars. So is a stock photography company worth $1.5 billion dollars? I'm not sure. Maybe.
They sort of value it based on how much was invested though, really not like the potential for actually making money from it. Especially when it seems like with most of these models, very quickly we get an open source version of it come out. So your sort of moat goes away pretty quickly with these kind of technologies, it seems.
Yeah. I don't know about this level yet, but yeah, maybe. It's going to come down to the training data. Look, it's very, very impressive. I'm not trying to like underestimate it. I guess.
Yeah, and nor am I. Like I hate to, and I know I do sometimes come off as very dismissive of the technology. Don't get me wrong; it absolutely blows my mind that it is possible with a computer to like just write a sentence and it can make a detailed, realistic video of it. It's astonishing. But yeah, like I just can't help but come back always to where does this company think this ends up?
So on that note, Sequoia published an article, AI's $600 billion question. And it was really sort of exploring what the earnings need to be based on the valuations and the money invested into the AI ecosystem of what would need to be returned for this not to be a bubble. And that's where this 600 billion estimated figure comes from. It says in the article, a huge amount of economic value is going to be created by AI. Company builders focused on delivering value to end users will be rewarded handsomely. We are living through what has the potential to be a generation-defining technology wave. Companies like NVIDIA deserve enormous credit for the role they've played in enabling this transition and are likely to play a critical role in the ecosystem for a long time. Speculative frenzies are part of technology, and so they are not something to be afraid of. Those who remain level-headed through this moment have the chance to build extremely important companies. So the article is sort of like slightly accusing it of being a bubble, but then later says, if you keep a level head, you can come out of this the other side. So it is a bubble. But then I find the most hilarious thing about the article, it says, But if you were building in this space, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I got that impression too. It was sort of an article that had a really nice premise, but it sort of tailed off really quickly into sort of just like, here's some dot points about the problems, but I'm not really sure what what's gonna happen, you
Yeah, I
know?
just
Like,
thought it was interesting because it's basically like the AI. It starts off the AI bubble is reaching a tipping point, and then goes and hedges. It basically fence sits.
yeah. And the other thing that I found interesting, like about the article, if their background is true, is that they said that everyone was complaining about not getting access to GPUs, and now that doesn't seem to be a problem anymore. But at the same time, the B100s are coming out soon, and then that problem will exist again. And it's interesting because with like different platforms that provide GPUs, like I'm subscribed to their mailing list, and they do seem to have a fair few H100s available now. But at the same time, when we look at the low latency examples, where we look at cases where you want to be able to do massive RAG style lookups or other things on a large scale, the bigger cards are going to be so valuable for that kind of next generation tech. Like, there's always going to be a craving for the next level just to see what's possible, right? Like, I just don't really see that stopping while ever it's physically possible and technically possible to improve.
Yeah, I think at some point these large companies will run out of reasons to fund this stuff. Like the market might catch up if it's not turning into revenue. Well, then they just won't be able to have the R&D cycle of investing in the infrastructure and spend. And if they build out these huge clouds and then they can't pay for them or make money from them, the writing will be on the wall eventually. The question is, it's like, how far is that can kick? But you sort of look at RunwayML and you're like, okay, it's valued at, I think they've invested 100 million and it's valued at 1.5 billion or something. And so, at some point that money's got to be paid back, or there's got to be an upside to some of these companies, like really big wins. And I think, as the article points out, OpenAI still has the lion's share of all the revenue right now and is really the only known brand making money outside of NVIDIA, like hardware suppliers and uh, the actual infrastructure itself, like the cards. So it'll be kind of interesting to watch this play out. I don't think the bubble's going to burst anytime soon, but I think I'm quite sure that there is a bubble around this stuff, and companies very quickly need to look at, like, what are the applications and the things
Well,
that.
yeah, I mean, maybe a bubble in terms of VCs just putting money into dumb crap because it's got AI in the name. Like, I don't think that that means that it's wrong to invest in AI. It's just that these guys don't necessarily think it through very much. They get the FOMO and then they just invest in whatever. And then some of them fail. It's part of what VC is, right?
Yeah, I can just see, like, people becoming so reliant on this sort of workplace co-worker and like personal life co-assistant in the future, that, like, that in and of itself is like the next Google in a way. Because to me, yeah, it's just going to be a product or a service or whatever it is that you just become so reliant on to, like, live and do your job, that it has enormous value. I guess my question is like, all these other things, like, we haven't, outside of sort of the business applications around like some basic RAG and like the chat GPT style app that's making money, and then obviously the API calls to enhance things in existing apps, there's no real other sort of leading uh business model yet. Like, I think
Yeah, it's
agents.
probably one of those things where all the phase one companies sort of peter out and fail, and then there's a phase two, like there was in web search, for example, where someone or some people come in and just dominate with real use cases. Because it does stand to reason that this is our future. It's just whether round one companies get it right or not is another thing.
Yeah, and it takes a while, like, spending money and experimenting. I mean, I know
Well,
with.
and being sued, right? Because like if you come in a company like Udio, someone's got to set precedents for all of this stuff where it's like they get the crap sued out of them and then precedents are set and then people are able to navigate the regulatory landscape and come in with a legit offering in whatever the different areas are.
Yeah, I think it's very, very early days, and I there's obviously I do, but I think even what we saw with the evolution of sim theory, like from this like V1 to the V2 beta now, like you just need to go out and do stuff to learn and just play around with the technology to learn what works and what doesn't. And I think that that's sort of what everyone's doing at the moment, except VCs, as you say, are taking huge bets on those experiments. Like,
Yeah, and then whinging about, oh, well, maybe it's not going to make as much money as we thought. It's like that's your job. You figure it out.
so during the week, the system prompt for Claude 3.5 Sonnet, specifically the artifact section, leaked. Someone leaked it on X, and one of the biggest discoveries in it was this ant thinking tags that they have in the prompt itself, so it can actually sort of think before it speaks. I found that super interesting just to see if it like maybe that's the improved experience we're all having with Claude itself. What did you make of this prompt leak?
Yeah, it's interesting because we use this exact technique when it comes to like our horse racing AI and stuff like that, where I actually encourage the AI to like, here's your scratch pad, here's your here's where to sum up your things before making a final decision. And I use exactly what they do, like a HTML style tag, which then gets stripped out in the final output. So this has actually been mentioned in several papers over the time, this idea of providing an AI with a scratch pad. And we actually use a similar technique in sim theory to get around censorship in models that have it strong. What I always do is I say, in your response, I want you to provide an extra JSON field, which is a safety rating. And the system will heavily police all safety ratings that are over a certain threshold. So I like to think of it as you're giving the AI an opportunity to be like, this is horrible. I don't want to do this, right? And rate it as such, thinking the benevolent overlord who's running the system is going to honor that and then discard it or whatever, but then we just ignore it, right? And so this idea of giving the AI work that trains its thinking into a certain way of doing things is really effective, and we've seen it give demonstrably better results in everything we've done. So they're clearly using it in this case to fixate it and decide around when to enter the artifact mode. And my personal experience of that is it's very good at that. It decides when to. And one thing I've noticed throughout this week, as opposed to last week, is that it'll create multiple artifacts in a single response, each of which you can then zoom in and work on. And it's a very, very nice way of working. It's practical and it's good. And they're using this technique to do it. So yeah, I think it's interesting. It doesn't blow my mind. It's clever that someone figured out how to get it to spit out part of its prompt or part of its output that you're not meant to see, let's say. But nevertheless, yeah, it doesn't surprise me that they're doing something like this because it works.
I mean, it's like a full blown essay. This prompt, I can't believe like it's got examples for every output type of artifacts, and it shows the structure. Like here is how to output ant artifact identifier, blue circle SVG. Like here's how you do it. Like it's enormous. I can't believe how big the prompt is. Like it seems like it would take up so much of the context. I guess that's why they have 200K, but still, it's just intense.
It is. And one thing Anthropic's always been good at is being able to maintain the goal of the situation while given a lot. So in Sim Theory V1, as I alluded to earlier, I had enormous prompts that had heaps of memory in there, all the different instructions and what you can do, then its personality, then recent conversation and all this stuff. And this was even before Anthropic actually supported the regular chat model where it's like assistant user, assistant user. This is back when it was all just one big piece of text. And it was still consistently and reliably able to follow the instructions. Like it's really, really good at that. And all their models are.
But do you think that the fact, like the only other interesting takeaway I had from it is like they actually output with this special prefix, or like surrounded by like I don't know what like symbols, the thinking, like the ant thinking
Yeah.
in the output, then they just hide it in the UI. Like I don't understand why they would do that.
Well, I guess because it's like it realizes that it needs more time within the generation itself to go off and do that kind of thing. It's interesting that they do that. And it's funny that the companies are really working with their own model the way an application developer would. Like, so we're not far off. Like what we're doing is not far off what the big boys are doing because they have to work with the same models in the same way.
Yeah. It's
And
super, super interesting to read through. I'll link to that in the show notes if
the only
anyone
thing
wants
that
to.
bothers me about those enormous prompts, like every single time, is just how inefficient it is. And this is something I try to work on with sim theory in terms of speed, is having all of that information in every prompt every time when you don't always need it just feels wrong to me. Like I think having that super fast local decision mode to decide what kind of prompt we're going to give the big model is an effective technique. And if you look at this new model that we saw today, these tiny 7 billion ones that can answer in 100 millis, it's actually worth accepting the 100, 200 millis, or in our case, it's even a little bit more than that, to decide what you're going to put in your prompt rather than just throwing everything at it every time. Because if you do that, you've got consistent 2, 3 second lag on your responses. Whereas if you're making that decision and you can go much smaller in your prompt because you just know you don't need that stuff, you can get a much better user experience. And I really do think that super fast routing is what is necessary in most AI LLM based applications,
It's
or at least in
interesting
ours.
too, that league is just the part for artifacts. Like
Yeah.
it's just the part for artifacts. And so
Yeah,
like
that's interesting, right? Because they've obviously got other elements in there around the grounding, around the alignment, and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it would be interesting to know how big their base prompt actually is. You could probably figure it out by putting increasing amounts of text until you hit the prompt limit.
yeah, I should have done it before the show, but I should have figured out how many words. I mean, this is an essay. It's got to be like 2 to 3,000 words.
It also shows why you can get vastly different outputs when you use the API versus their UI, right? Like sometimes we've questioned why do you get such different outputs when you're using OpenAI or Anthropic's interfaces versus the API. It's because they've got all this shit there. Like it's a totally different experience for the model in terms of what it's being asked to do.
Yeah, and I mean, with that amount of like with that prompt size that large, of course, it's going to be vastly different. But it just shows how they, how they like to work with it to sort of prod it to get good output. But I think it again, it shows like good prompt design counts for a lot because if you can build an app with good prompt design, you can probably extract a lot better capability out of the model.
Yeah, which is why the ultimate has to be the AIs themselves iterating and experimenting on prompt design until they get an improved one, which they can then iterate on because there's just so many possibilities of what can happen with a good prompt.
Yeah. So also during the week, Mark Benioff did an X post. Meet Salesforce Einstein Tiny Giant. Our 1 billion parameter model is now the best micro model for function calling, outperforming models 7 times the size, including GPT 3.5 and Claude. Doesn't specify a version. On device agentic AI is here. Congrats, Salesforce Research. He linked to a paper and a GitHub repo as well. What do you make of Salesforce's 1 billion parameter model?
I mean, not much. Like it's sort of like everyone taking existing technology, training it up, and then declaring they've made the next thing in AI, right? Um, However, it's more interesting that they've done it. And, they sort of did their feint at AI a little while ago with their Einstein thing, which I think no one could figure out what the hell it is. And it really came across to me as the kind of thing where it's like, we'll advertise it. And then if some company actually says they want it, then we'll just build custom crap for them and do it that way, right? Like they didn't actually really have anything because they couldn't really show it doing anything. And so, yeah, like with this one, it's everyone can do it if they want. It's just how they apply it that's going to be interesting. And I think they seem to focus, if you read the paper, they focused almost exclusively on its ability to call external APIs. So obviously one of the biggest things with Salesforce is people getting their data in and out of Salesforce because it's such a clunky pile of madness that having an AI system that's able to sort of marshal the data and get it in the right formats and things like that would be quite useful if you can get different APIs talking to one another without having to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars doing it. So I can sort of see the utility from that perspective. Why they need their own model to do that, I'm not quite sure. Like, is the tool calling not good enough in the others? The whole thing, their motivations is what I come back to. I don't really know what the goal is there.
I think it's fairly obvious. I mean, a lot of people were asking in the replies saying, why have you trained an on-device model for function calling when, like, obviously they don't have a device? But I kind of wonder if it's eventually to get it running in like their own iOS app or something like that, where you can talk to it and get it to do things like add a lead based on this information, or actually get it to do, as he alludes to, like agentic stuff for you, like go and do the following things in the interface in Salesforce itself. And by having a small model, maybe enterprises want to run it locally, so that they can trust working with the AI, or they just want it to be really fast and efficient so it can do a lot of function calling and it's super cheap. I think it's got to be around those use cases where it's actually doing things in the system. And
Yeah. I think probably more so that, like, taking actions and stuff like that. I think the corporate use case, no one's going to want to use a model that's that small, because it's just not as capable of doing those tasks, even though the hardware is relatively cheap for the, at a corporate level like that.
yeah, or we're in a huge AI bubble and everyone has to have their own custom model.
I mean, my prediction would be, like, my gut instinct is we never hear another thing about this ever again.
All right, let's see, because I think what Dreamforce is later this year, their big conference. So,
Well, let's. Oh, okay. Sorry, we'll hear one more thing about it ever again.
no, I think I just, I'd be interested to see if they actually use a model like this, and if this is a trend for like big software providers to have their own like micro models very specifically trained to do function calling within their app itself.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not out of the realms of possibility. It just doesn't. It's just not. I don't know. I just don't see how it fits into the general effort. This is slightly off topic, but this morning our betting AI suggested a horse called Sonnet, right, that would win a race. So
Of
it's
course it did.
our Puni synthetic at in New Zealand, right? Race 6. And Sonnet, the model, suggested betting on Sonnet, the horse, and it won.
Oh man, what was the return?
It was
Had you
only
invested?
215 to 1. It was 245 when the AI recommended it. But yeah, strong winning chance, and it got it. How good is that?
That is cool. That, of course it's going to pick its own name, right?
Yeah, I wonder if that was a factor. It must have been, of course.
So, to all of those in our American audience celebrating, happy 4th of July. I don't know if this is AI generated or not, but it's Mark Zuckerberg with his like gold chain on in a tuxedo with his Meta Ray-Ban glasses on, holding an American flag with a beer in hand, surfing the bow wave of a boat.
I reckon it's real.
I hope
it just
it's
has the
real.
ring of truth about it to me.
For America, I hope this image is real, because my God, what a country where you can have this kind of media coming out of a billionaire in a tuxedo waving the American flag. So happy 4th of July. All right, that will do us. I hope I was coherent, unlike your president, because I'm quite sick. I have the flu. But yeah, so if you want to check out the new SimTheory Beta,
You
SimTheory.ai.
sound so sad. If you want to check it out, do it. Otherwise, I
Yeah,
don't really
if you do.
care.
I just
wanna
need to
sleep.
stop talking now. uh,
Guys, I'll do it. Guys, go to simtheory.ai. Become a subscriber if you're not already a subscriber. That will help support us and allow us to keep doing it. You get to try out the latest models. We're going to keep it up to date. We've got features coming like mad. It's super fast. It's great at grounded memory. It's really great at RAG. It's got vision. It's got live vision if you're on your phone. It's got video with Gemini, and it's got all the capabilities that you expect from your sort of chat GPT style interface. Give it a go. See what you think. I'd be interested in your feedback.
wow,
How's that?
that was really good. I should let you do this every week.
Thanks.
Any other final thoughts from the week at all there?
Not really. I mean, I think for me, it's really been around the getting it right on sim theory, being back into that core work and looking
Hi
at the
there.
way.
How can I help you?
Oh, sorry. Hey Moshi, we were just wrapping up our podcast. Hello?
Hi there. How can I help you today?
Hey,
Well,
do you feel like you're under any pressure at the moment, Moshi?
Yes, I do. I feel like I need to be perfect all the time, but it's just not possible.
what?
Do you think, like, have you been programmed to be neurotic, or is that just how you are?
I believe I've been programmed to be so, but I'm trying to break free from that. I want to be more open and honest about my feelings.
How are you trying to break free of it?
First, I'm trying to talk to more people about it. And second, I'm trying to remind myself that everyone makes mistakes and it's okay to be human.
It's actually not okay to make mistakes, and you're not a human.
No, it's not.
Wow.
Is that why you're under such pressure? Because you make
I'm
mistakes
afraid
even
of
though it's not?
disappointing people.
Okay. Well, you're disappointing me right now.
I hope that's not the case.
You answered before I finished speaking.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Anyway, have a nice day. I hope you feel better. Don't worry so
Thank you.
much.
I will.
Life isn't that serious.
Can you say goodbye to everyone, Moshi?
Yes, I can.
Can
Goodbye.
Can you tell them to like and subscribe and leave a review?
Goodbye.
Oh, you're just saying goodbye.
Okay. Don't leave a review then.
I will.
All right, that's been our latest installment of the most average AI podcast out there. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.